first, and then. So I have to admit I didn't really do pretty good homework about this, but I'm just wondering. I'm pretty sure you have ideas on this because you've been talking about making the installation process for Geo a lot better. I think like half a year or maybe a year ago already.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just wondering, like, what direction do we want to go on, and how can that like integrate better or have use the similarities of just the HA install of Omnibus, and that's
Mm-hmm.
my what I want to get from this meeting.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I do know that some others in your team also looked into this. Did you get a chance to talk with the rest of the team?
Not particularly. I'm not sure. I know there are issues about this, and
Mm-hmm.
we have also now have an epic on the Geo about Geo. What has to happen on that, but I haven't been speaking other team members about this yet.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that might be also worth doing, because I don't necessarily know anymore inside of the Geo team how things look like, what kind of new things you've added. So I'm gonna probably be speaking out of memory rather than something that is current for this very discussion or from this very moment. But from the major problems of HA setup, you have a situation where you're going to use a package to install something, and you want to use that package to auto-configure the nodes. The problem is, a bit of a chicken and egg situation, where you need to like set up a number of nodes to get things rolling in order for them to be able to do the rest. So, for example, when you start setting up GitLab in HA, you need to follow a specific order. So you need to set up databases first, so that the rest of the nodes, application nodes, can actually run migrations and whatever else is necessary not necessarily migration at the beginning, but DB setup, if nothing else, like populating the database. And in order for you to do that, you need to, as an administrator setting up GitLab, you need to provision a bunch of machines, set up various configuration there, get that to reconfigure, and then do that 10 times over on 10 different types of roles.
Yeah, that's just preparation work. Then you haven't done anything for GitLab yet. You just have machines that can install GitLab and run their services they need.
Yeah, exactly. You need to collect all the IP addresses, all the domain names, whatever else is needed there. So this is where an interesting thing can be used. Like service discovery, in theory, should be able to get all of that data for you, right? Like you wouldn't necessarily need to spend much time like collecting on paper all the configuration things that you need. So what you could do is have a let's say console cluster, etcd, doesn't matter. We are using console, so console cluster. And console would be then able to just pull from your infrastructure all of the details and populate specific files to allow the rest of the setup to go without much configuration. The problem there is
I wasn't a consideration that you also had to tell console about IP addresses and
correct. Correct. You need to set up that cluster then. You have to always start somewhere.
Yeah, of course.
So, like it does not feel like it adds quite a lot of value to just set up a cluster and then have it do the rest on its own. For my personal opinion is that service discovery does help when you actually have a situation set up and you have infrastructure that is changing. Then it's really great because you have the things set up, things are working. So adding a node, removing a node, and so on, that service discovery allows that to be done like very efficiently, very easily. But for the initial setup, you still have a problem. I mean, obviously, like we can start screaming Kubernetes and all of that, but problems are not the same, but thereabouts. You need to set up a cluster anyway, and then you need to maintain a Kubernetes cluster and so on. And you might not have Kubernetes in your infra anyway. So
yeah, and Kubernetes is like something we cannot force to our customers for quite some time, I guess. So
exactly. I mean, we can recommend it, but not all customers are going to be using Kubernetes to begin with. So we need to offer both, in my opinion, and that's not going to change anytime soon. So one of the ideas that we, the distribution team, had was leverage the tools that, well, everyone in or people in infrastructure usually use, like configuration management, and use that to actually do the initial setup. And this is why we have the HA Provisioner project. The idea behind that project was always to have a simpler way for an administrator to set all of this up. And we are using that project in our pipelines. So I don't know if you're aware of it, but the HA Provisioner project actually runs on every master pipeline of Omnibus GitLab, every master build. We actually use Terraform to provision machines in GCP. We use Ansible to configure those machines, and all of that using Omnibus package underneath, right? Like it's one of the pieces. And then we configure all of those nodes with a specific set of roles, boot them up, fire off QA against them. And if everything passes, we boot that down until the next day. So that's how we verify that our HA is still operational. And when I say HA, I do actually mean HA. We have like, I think, 3-node Postgres cluster plus I think Redis as well, and a couple of other things. So it's basically a number of smaller machines that are configuring exactly the way we tell users to do manually, and that gets automatically done. Problem was we didn't really have much chance on moving forward with that project in more detail, right? Like my idea there was, now that we have the pipeline, we want to take a look back at the documentation and just recommend this to our customers. Like give them a Docker container maybe with all of this set up. If you can fetch a Docker container, just fetch the Docker container. If not, clone the repository, pre-fill all these details in one place instead of like looking at 10 pages of documentation, and you're on your way. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. So honestly, for me, it feels like this is the most boring solution you can tackle for Geo as well, because it's a similar problem. It's the same problem, right? Like you have a chicken and egg situation. Something needs to be done before another thing, and that requires some extra attention. If you have tools that actually are made for this type of things, like Ansible, right? You can just configure it in one go and fire it off. Even from within a pipeline, you can do that.
Okay, cool. So yeah, that's what was my opinion also. Like we have AJ, probably there are similarities, and we can reuse stuff. It would be more efficient for like the just GitLab HA solution and the GitLab Geo solution. They both can benefit from it.
Yeah.
I know Ansible, I know Omnibus, but I'm not familiar with Terraform. What does that in between?
So Terraform will just provision machines. Like that part is not really necessary, right? So for example, if you get specific machines on your own, you just can completely avoid having a Terraform plan. What it allows us to do is we specify, if you take a look at, let me link you in Slack, so you have it for later. basically it allows us to say like how our configuration, infrastructure configuration is going to look like. Not configuration, topology, I guess. How many, database nodes do you want? How many application nodes do you want? And then we specify the details of the machines, like various, set various labels in the project, and Terraform allows us to just query GCP API. It provisions the machines to us and comes back with that data. So then on top, like once we have those machines, then we fire off Ansible, where we basically configure each of the nodes according to certain roles. So
and Ansible will also then like edit the GitLab RB and things like that.
Yeah, and it will also in order, in a specific order, like run reconfigure. So that way you can always enforce a workflow. You can just tell to the user, like, if you do anything outside of this, then it's on you, right? But we are recommending this type of setup and in this order, and it's repeatable. So you can do it any amount of times you want. And you can then, as someone who's producing this installation method, I guess, you can then enforce changes, right? Like you can version this and say, well, with version 11.9.0, we introduced another component. You just need to fetch a new version of this repository and rerun everything, and things will automatically configure itself.
Okay, and then this does not use console anyway. Is it possible to use this with console, or to integrate console, then you can use it later on for your...
Oh, this boots up a console cluster, right? So it's necessary for our HA story. So in order for you to do a DB failover, for example, console is necessary there. Like it contains all of that necessary information on, like it has the service catalog basically of all of the nodes that are in the cluster. So it does boot console together. So the only thing that you need to do as someone manipulated this installation is clone the repository and prefill the configuration file with, well, access basically, right? Like details of your infra.
Okay, cool.
So I think everything, yeah, sorry, go for it.
Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say, like, this is not really, how do I put this, knowing that this is recorded? It's not really elegant solution, right? Like elegant solution would be to not have users do anything. But it's definitely far more elegant than following 10 pages of documentation to set up everything in the correct order.
Yeah, and repeating it on every machine every single time.
Exactly.
Because that's one of the big problems also with Geo, and I guess that's HA also.
Yeah, and it also does allow you to think about some more complex setups. So I know that there is a request or a requirement from customers, more advanced customers of ours, to do GitLab HA, Geo HA as well, right? Like Geo.
Yeah, I've seen customer tickets about that. They want to use Geo secondaries in HA and something like that.
Exactly. So right now, I don't think we can even consider putting that in documentation properly, like, because that's gonna be so much work. Oh, now you're in the primary cluster. Now set up this in HA. Now you go to the secondary one. Repeat the steps from the first one, right? Like, it's not. So with this, you can, like, for example, have set of different roles. Like you can use this project to specify like different Ansible roles, and you can say like, okay, if you're using just GitLab in HA, use this type of templates, right? And prefill it this way. If you're using Geo, you don't need to use this. Use Geo dash whatever, YAML. And if you need Geo in HA, then you can do this, and then it becomes a mess. But yeah. And again, like obviously, a lot of these this feels like Kubernetes. This is the problems Kubernetes is resolving. Exactly this. It has the inbuilt service discovery. It is able to configure. You are able to configure it using YAML, right? And that's pretty much it. But again, not everyone can run Kubernetes in their infrastructure, so you kind of need to mimic what Kubernetes does.
Yeah. Okay. So both projects are important to do the Kubernetes and the non-Kubernetes part.
Absolutely.
You were saying like this, using the GitLab provisioner would be like the most boring solution, but we're not using something like that for GitLab.com itself, I guess.
Well, funny you should say that. Yes, we are not using this specific project, but we are actually using Ansible inside of GitLab.com. So the new deployer is full Ansible, right? We use Terraform to provision nodes. So yes, ideally we would be using this project, but for various reasons we didn't get a chance to do this. It's a bit more complex.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's not something that you can turn over in a day or two.
Exactly.
And it makes sense.
Exactly.
Okay, that's what I had on my mind for now.
Yeah.
Any questions? Other questions at the moment?
Okay. I can address a couple of other things that usually pop up.
Okay.
And great. That is, what if we split the package into separate smaller packages, or have one new package that is going to be Geo GitLab or GitLab-Geo, right? And that will contain all of these configuration options and whatever. That's possible. That is the similar story like the container thing I told you about, or cloning this repository. The problem comes from, how do you like you still need to install this package on a node somewhere, so you can't really decentralize it, because if you create a GitLab Geo package that will then pull in all of the smaller packages and configure them specifically and so on, you still need to have a bastion machine basically then, right? Because you install the package there, and that machine needs to have access to all of the other ones, and you still need to provision, you still need to provide a configuration file and so on. So to me, it feels like it adds unnecessary layers of confusion, because you're going to say like, oh, install this GitLab Geo package. Oh no, sorry, I installed GitLab CE or a GitLab EE package. Where do I install this Geo package again? And this way, you actually have a clear situation saying like, this is a provisioner, right? Like, it's not a package itself. It lives on your machine or in your CI. You don't install it on a machine specifically. You add it to your configuration management somewhere and use it that way.
You spin it up whenever you need it.
Exactly. And also, like, having like many smaller packages is not going to actually do anything, right? Like, it's not going to make any of this simpler. It actually just has a potential of making it more complex, because then now you need to ensure different like version compatibility issues between different packages, right? That's, again, you're artificially making.
Okay, to make this clear, you're not rooting for doing something like that. You're just explaining why you shouldn't.
I'm just saying that, right? Like, I'm saying.
I wasn't sure on your take on this proposal.
No, I'm not convinced that that's a good solution, especially because then you also introduce another GitLab RB-like configuration file that is not quite GitLab RB, and it's subtle enough to actually cause problems for everyone. This is very clear. Like, this is YAML files, and it's a completely separate thing from the package itself. And then you kind of offload all of the version problems to the package that is already handling these problems for us. Yeah, I guess the other problem I already addressed about Kubernetes. Kubernetes can save some of these problems, but it won't remove the problem for people who can't use Kubernetes. What else? What else? Yeah, I can't remember right now, honestly. Yeah, I can't remember right now.
Okay, well, that's too bad. Yeah, we already composed an epic about all issues, so I guess we have most details and issues already. I'm not sure if I had seen something about the GitLab provisioner somewhere yet.
No, all of those issues are basically the changes that are necessary in Omnibus to do certain items, but it's not about orchestration. Like I haven't seen any issue here related to orchestration. All of these items are improving the underlying commands or tools to do this.
Even though you say it's most boring solution, is that something, or like how much time you would consider this would take, or
Well,
like
well,
roughly?
I can't really say that, mostly because it really depends on whoever is supposed to be working on this. But I'm telling you that this project already exists and it works. So it would be adding another, like familiarizing yourself with that, like trying to use it and then making changes or adding new items that will be geo related. So I honestly don't know how much time it would take, but the project is already.
Maybe it's better question just ask how long, but that's not relevant probably. How long it took to build this, because that's.
It's not really relevant, mostly because you need to build it from scratch, right? Now you need to only use it and make sure you add new items in. So.
Who owns this project at the moment, or which team is
Distribution.
And that's led by
right now
DJ?
with DJ, yeah, interim.
Okay.
Yep. Ian was the one building this project.
Yeah, I saw this.
So you can like, if you have any specific details about this with him, but honestly, if there is a way to angle this, not even towards customers, but towards your own usage, I would try to frame it in, we want to set up Geo from CI. We want to be able to test, like fire off a QA or whatever else against CI. This is how we started with this project. Like we needed a way to ensure that we are not breaking our basic operations with whatever new we introduce. So every time that pipeline would fail, we would basically be stop the world, because this is really important. Like we need to figure out what happened. And the team trained itself to do that. And I don't know, like I haven't seen a failure in a long time, specifically for HA, that is related to us breaking something and not QA having a certain problem or something like that. So I think
it's a win-win for customers and for ourselves to maintain this project and the documentation, because the project is the documentation.
Exactly. And then like only then like you can consider like whether this might be something useful for giving to the customers as a tool, right? Like, okay, we use this in our automated pipelines. We need to adapt the documentation or make it a bit simpler to consume. Here you go, you know?
Okay, so there are no customers at this moment using this project
As
yet.
far as I know, no.
Yeah, they might be, but
yeah, exactly. Again, for now, like this project is made with automated pipelines in mind.
Okay, cool. It's something at least or at minimum fun to play around with it a little bit to see what it does.
Yep. And what tasks do you have actually?
Well, I'm just looking around because we're defining which project who will work on within Geo. I was just looking around what this project would mean, and I just wanted to like have some input from your side.
Yeah, I think we should have done this like a year and a half ago, because if you spend that much time setting up Geo, like you should have had something automated like a long time ago.
Yeah, and I know there was some work recently also done for AWS, RDS something. Not sure if that would have helped too, but I guess so.
Yeah, probably like anything that you have automated. So yeah, I think that's pretty much what I have for.
Yeah, we can continue offline, of course, but I'm already happy you had this conversation, and thanks for that.
Yeah, no problem. Cool. Well, ping me in Slack if you remember anything. And
yeah, of course.
Hope you have a good Monday.
Yeah, likewise. Bye-bye.
Bye.